This is one of 3 spaces that we work out of. Innovation Works on the north side at Nova Place. It's pretty much mostly our administrative offices, and a lot of our events are held here as well. And also, over the years, as most of you know, we have accelerators that have been located in East Liberty. But most recently, we launched the Robotics Factory. That is our 4th accelerator, AlphaLab being software accelerator, AlphaLab Gear hardware, AlphaLab Health or life sciences, and the Robotics Factory, which is funded by the Build Back Better initiative. And so we're really excited that space is now in Lawrenceville, and all the accelerators are based there. So that's an exciting space to be, and hopefully we can head over there one day. And we are, just really excited to be the administrators of UpPrize. As you know, the competition is funded by BNY Mellon, but Innovation Works, since we do work in the space of supporting entrepreneurs in the region, we care really well in supporting the work that you're doing and ensuring that you will further and gain more confidence in the next stage of the UpPrize Social Innovation Challenge. So we will talk about all the details about UpPrize. I'm happy to answer all the questions about the next phases of the competition, but I am super excited to welcome today's facilitator. I think most of you know her. Nadyli Nunez is the Executive Director of Ascender PGH and has been serving entrepreneurs long before the company, and has been such a support and beacon of hope for so many entrepreneurs in our community at various stages of growth. So I couldn't think of anyone better to help us learn about how to make effective pitches than Nadyli, because she does have a history with that. She actually was with UpPrize, support with UpPrize with the Great Idea Challenge in 2014. 2015. So this challenge has evolved from great ideas to where we are today. So I'm going to turn the mic over to Nadyli. I will be back to answer all the great questions you have about the pitch and what to expect, all things challenge related.
All right, hi everyone. It's great to see you all. Wake up, wake up. And thank you so much, Joyce, for talking to me and wanting me to do this. I think all of you have seen some version of this presentation, or most of you have seen some version of this presentation. But of course, as you know, every presentation is different based on what the context is and who you're talking to. I do want to say in advance, for the last 2.5 weeks, I was dealing with terrible allergies. So I might have a cough here or there. It is not COVID. I got tested. I'm good. But it's been miserable with allergies the last 2 weeks. And so just bear with me if I'm coughing. I'm not contagious and I'm not dying. So just putting that out there. We have about an hour or so together. And so obviously you're here for perfecting your pitch. Please feel free to ask questions. I think I want to kind of zoom through this because I think especially with these categories that UpPrize has, there's some nuances to delivering this kind of work and communicating that, and also in so little time, right? Because the issue is so complex. So I want to be able to discuss together kind of how do we approach that, but I want to give you the framework. Okay, so I'm Nadyli. You forget, really Nadyli, but most of you know. Done Ascender. I've also been reviewing pitch presentations for many years, university level, outside of Pittsburgh, in Pittsburgh, formally, informally. So I've been here. I've heard a lot. And in fact, Innovation Works, I used to go to every single pitch when I was first going into the entrepreneurship scene, because I was like, I want to see what these pitches look like. And also, more importantly, what are the judges asking? And I would write it down too. What are they curious about? What do people not answer? What are their major concerns? So I encourage you to do that as well. So first, the uncool stuff. Let's talk about logistics. So in terms of the upcoming presentations, if you need a refresher, I think Joyce did send some information, but you have kind of 3 areas. One, there's pitch practice. You can go either September 20th or the 27th at the BNY Mellon Innovation Center. This is to practice your 3-minute pitch. And there will be a sign-up sheet that she will send around so you can sign up for the respective slot. October 11 and October 12, That is a very important pitch presentation. It will be a little bit more intimate than a lot more intimate than the showcase, but this is where you'll actually be in front of judges. And I think Joyce will send it out who they are. And this is where you're gonna provide a pitch between 5 to 7 minutes, but I put 7 minutes because I know you guys, you're gonna take the 7. So 7 minutes, and it'll be followed by 8 to 10 minutes of Q&A. Now, how many of you have been in a Q&A that long? Okay. Okay, so you're good. So you know that you gotta have what? Your appendix together, right? So there's plenty of time for them to really dig into what you talked about and some additional information, which means that you don't need to talk about everything in the actual presentation. There's gonna be opportunity. It's almost like a comedian, right? Comedian knows what the audience is looking for, what they're waiting for. You can set that up too in your presentation. Oh, I know they're gonna ask about this thing. I'm gonna have the slide, but I'm not sure if they'll ask about this other thing. I'll include in the actual presentation. And then lastly, the showcase, which is just a 3-minute pitch. And the main focus of that one is really just to showcase what you're doing. You don't know who's in the audience, who could be a potential partner, potential customer. If you're looking for talent, I know a lot of people who found their co-founders in these kinds of settings, right? Actually, last point, when they won UpPrize, I was running it that year. I think they found their first customer at the semi-finalist level at the BNY Mellon. They found their first customer. So you never know. You never know who's in there. All right. So I was told that this is the first time you're officially meeting each other, although a lot of you know each other to some extent or another, right? But I'm going to do something you're not going to like, which is I kind of want you to do a 1-minute pitch. Now, we can do it 2 ways. We can do a democracy here. One, you can kind of pitch to each other. So pick a partner that you haven't met or don't know that well and do a 1-minute pitch, or I'm going to pick randomly 3 or 4 people to pitch a 1 minute. So for the first option, raise your hand. I'm looking at everybody. We're going to pick the first option. Raise hand high. Second option. All right, we'll do the first option by one. All right, so pick someone that you don't know very well, at the very least, and then you're going to spend a minute. And I'll time you too. Spend a minute sharing just one company, and then we'll do the other person. Okay? I'll tell you when I start the timer. All right, I think we're going to go first. All right, and I'm starting it now.
We specialize in
Twenty seconds. Five. All right, you're done. Okay, so now that you did your 1 minute pitch, I want your partner, 2 volunteers who didn't pitch, to say something about what you just heard. What stood out to you from that first company or what they're doing? Yes. Can you speak louder? All right, go ahead.
So, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
One company, they're preparing people for the process of family. Keeping them with all the services and the opportunities that they have during this complicated journey. So they're making it more simple and providing all this landscape of opportunities for them before they start the process.
Fabulous. Thank you. Thank you. All right, one more person. All right. AJ.
But, well, are we describing it or what was unique?
Whatever stood out to you that you want to say.
This is Alexis with Aggressive Contracting, and they, from what I got, they do a lot of renovations, historic renovations, structural renovations around the area of Pittsburgh, like August Wilson's home, the Hill District, and many historical places that were relevant to minorities. And I think that's a really unique aspect of contracting, especially from a commercial standpoint. Where, you know, there's a lot of real estate
Yeah.
being built in here, and so I definitely think that has a huge impact and significance, and it's something that's like definitely scaled nationally. Every major city has historical things about it. It's here.
Fabulous, thank you. Thank you. All right, we're gonna do one more turn, so the other person gets to present. We can just put it on the table if you want, microphone. It won't mean that you go next. All right, so whenever you're ready, 1 minute, go. Twenty. Five. All right, wrap it up. Okay, I'll take one volunteer this time to share their partner's company. All right, perfect.
Okay.
All right, we're gonna share out now.
So this is Kaden, and he is the CEO of Farm to Plane, and they are looking to reduce the imprint of diesel generators by using more biodegradable materials to generate electricity, saving not only money, but the environment and the lives that are impacted by the toxic, noxious fumes from diesel generators.
Fabulous. That was really good. That was really good. Trying to hear on your team. All right. Well, it was just one. Yeah. It's just one. So thank you for participating in that. The reason why I wanted to have that activity is because, thanks. Shout out. So the reason why I wanted to have that activity is because when you're presenting, you need to think about what can that person say about your company once they leave that room, right? And you get that one shot. And so you have to think about not what to fit, everything to fit in 1 minute is what are the 1 to 3 things in that 1 minute that I can provide this person that enables them to speak about it elsewhere or advocate for it elsewhere. Now you have 3 to 7 minutes for these presentations. So you want to think about how do I deliver this, not in a super technical way, but in a way that this person can repeat it to someone else who's never heard about my company before, right? It's almost like they're working for you to realize, right? All right, so before we get into the actual outline, I like to think about mindset because I think mindset sets the whole tone of how you're gonna, move forward in this, right? So what's the mindset that you come in, you've all given a presentation, what's the mindset you bring when you do a presentation? To share for yourself. Confidence. Wanting to educate. Fabulous.
Passion.
Inspire, passion, connected. Fabulous. So you have to think about what's the mindset. And I even want to take it one step back. It's what's the mindset when you're preparing for this presentation? So it even starts before then. And the thing that I like to use is this 3-point mindset. Go, good, great. And this might not apply for you, but I know it applies for me. Sometimes I get so bogged down in trying to do something perfectly that it's the day before the presentation and I gotta just wrap it up, right? I know how it is. So I always tell people when you're preparing for anything, go, just get it on the paper, get it on the slide, it doesn't have to be pretty, it doesn't even have to be the right words, but what are the points that you want to include or talk about in this slide? Then you can go back to it and make it good. And maybe hopefully you'll get to great by this, when you're presenting at the showcase, but you just at least have to be good, right? And sometimes your good is actually great. No one really knows what your great looks like, right? Only you. But think about that when you're approaching this and putting this together, because I think getting started is one of the hardest things, and all you have to do is just go. And then you're going to make it good, and then you're going to make it great. Especially with entrepreneurship, you don't have time always to make it 110%. Sometimes you only have time to do 90% because you have 3 million other things you need to do. All right, so now we're going to go into the outline. Now this is based out of the rubric that Joyce already sent out.
Yeah.
All right, great. So this is based out of the rubric that Joyce already sent out. Listen, this presentation is about you, but it's also not about you. And what I mean by that is that ultimately, everyone here is trying to win some money. Isn't that right? Yeah. Everyone here is trying to win some money. So what do you have to do? You have to play the game, right? So you are given the rubric. It is telling you this is how you can win. So follow it, because the judges are going to be looking at that exact rubric. And maybe you even title your slides those things and make it as easy as possible for them to understand, translate what you're saying to what they have to score on, right? So make sure you do that. And did this show up? Okay, great, shows up good. Not over here. All right, so there's a 3-minute presentation, there's a 7-minute presentation, up to 7 minutes. The 3-minute presentation has these things. And I kind of moved them around a little bit, but it's essentially the same thing if you read the description. There's the opener, which is the title slide, and we'll cover it. There's a market, how relevant is this to the actual UpPrize umbrella? And then you all are in a different category. So make sure you reread that description, make sure you reread UpPrize, make sure you make it very obvious how this is making a social impact in our world, in our community, or however you positioned it when you apply, right? And then what does that mean in terms of the actual market opportunity? And we're going to go through all of this. Solution, you've all done it. You've all given a presentation. You're going to talk about your product. That is, I think, the section that I fight with entrepreneurs most, because I know you're in love with your product, but I don't care that much. What I care is what is the impact? Are you the right team? And where are you as far as the actual development of the product? But I don't need the actual features or the very specific features that you think took you 3 months to put together. That is awesome. We don't have time for that today. And so through that, it's an overview. The most important part is the value proposition. And then for feasibility in this specific 3-minute, it's more focused on traction. And then obviously team leadership, the impact of the dollars, and then the closer. All right. For the additional time, I did give I forgot I did this. Great. So if you need a guidance in terms of how much time to spend in each one, this is in seconds. It adds to you'll have an additional 8 seconds left in the 3-minute one. Doesn't matter, right? But this is just a place for you to start. It doesn't mean it has to be that way. In fact, depending on your company, it can look a little bit differently. But if you need a place to go, this is where you can start. My point is, though, you've got to make sure you put enough time on feasibility, enough time on the impact, enough time on the team and leadership and the market. So some people just swim through that really quickly. I think we'll send this PDF. So I know that the orange isn't showing very well in the slide, and I apologize for that. Okay, for the 7-minute presentation, these are the additional items that you need to include: revenue model, customer acquisition, and then talk about scalability, which is actually really connected to the customer acquisition, and then their fundraising and milestones. All right, and then for that, you're going to spend a lot of time. So, thank you so much for this. Please spend enough time here. A lot of entrepreneurs make that mistake, especially in this kind of competition. They already probably read a little bit about what you do. They kind of know already. So you should be spending a lot more on the business section than the other parts.
I'll just add real quick, evaluate your applications. The state colleges that got selected in our finalists, select thing.
There you go. So it's really what's going to differentiate you. You don't include it, you're going to fall behind in this competition. So make sure you spend some time there. All right. So I'm going to give an example pitch. Now, I love going online and looking at pitches. What I usually do is that I find competitions that are relevant to an industry that I'm helping someone with. Fast forward to who the winner was, and then I look at their, presentation, and then maybe I'll check the other ones. But no, I couldn't find a specific presentation that has this exact structure. But I have two examples, one that I'll show now, one that I'll show later. But just to kind of give you a feel, I feel like the slides are really good. Can we bring it higher? Is there any way to increase the volume? Because it doesn't go up online.
Oh, no. That's on mine now.
That's the highest?
Yeah.
All right, we'll see.
People in Africa converted their hands and
Can you kind of?
I am listening to you from the city of Wiki. Empowering people in Africa to invest their hands and just
Can you sort of hear it? No, a little bit. Maybe if you're under the right speaker. If not, this will also be sent out. But I still want you to look at the slides. And sorry, it's not loud enough. It's a 5-minute. Oh.
I like it's one of the biggest challenges for people in Africa. And to illustrate my point, let me tell you the story of my brother. He who lived in Kuala Lumpur. 2 years ago, his wife called me. Please, your brother is sick at home since 2 weeks, and last night we were very much together. I asked her, why is that home? She responded, we don't have money to go to school. Like 800 million people in Africa, my brother is not able to stay long for the natural police to be able to have access to healthcare when he needs. The consequence is that 38% of people in Africa are delaying or postponing healthcare due to person like my brother. And for those who are able to go to hospital, more than 100 million people are experiencing cancer of the lifespan, meaning that healthcare is pushing them more to poverty. I also send the money to my brother. Like saying that many people who are doing conference today. Each year, more than $9 billion is spent in Africa for healthcare. But the process of spending money for healthcare is not adapted to the emergency of healthcare situation. There is lack of accessibility because of the health, and there is really no impact of this huge amount of money to the health system. To see people like my brother to build enough saving to be able to have access to healthcare when they need, and also improve traceability and facilitate the transfer of money for healthcare. We are learning weekend. The first element of weekend is saving. Saving is something that is complicated everywhere, and particularly for people like my brother. So instead of asking people to say, we partner, we look at the data, and we reality program based on cashback. So that when you come and buy something, you receive a cashback that is stored in the weekend wallet and can be used money for health. When member of the family or friend want to send money for health, they can use weekend and they are confident that the money will be used for health. Next time when my brother will need to go to hospital, he can go to biggest partners hospital and he will enjoy additional benefits in terms of brand discount. This is how the product looks like. The first time when you enter retail, you need to set up your personalized goal. You want to save because you want to protect your family, you want to save because you have diabetes, and actually you need to have regular money in your pocket to have your medication or your consultation. When you set your goal, our role at retail is to empower you to be able to achieve that goal. We also offer to you on the platform access to our health services, our healthcare partners, and also offer to you access to potential retailer where you can put send money when you're spending and save for head when you're spending money. And you have also retail, your headline where you can pay and transfer money for head. On the entire system, we have put a lot of clarification element to make all the experience of say health clinic enjoyable for our users. We make money in 4 revenue streams. We make money in 4 revenue streams, commission for partner, transaction fees, operating income, and foreign exchange fees. And the most important revenue stream for our revenue stream for us is subscription. We are creating this model in Goma and Republic Democratic of Congo. We have partnership with 2 gas stations, 2 pharmacies, 3 hospitals. We are observing 20% growth in terms of monthly growth in terms of user, 50% monthly growth in terms of total value processed by the system. And more importantly, our users are able to receive already more than $6 in terms of cashback per month our active users. As Skycare professional, I was very pleased to see that the first transaction of weekend was in the pharmacy was done after 2 weeks. And the first transaction hospital was done after 2 months. Our users will love what we are doing for them. We need to keep in mind that for all these people, for the first time in their life, they are able to enter a pharmacy, buy medication, and spending their personal money, or to go to hospital and have a big discount, like the case of the first leading hospital on weekend, with more than 50% of the cost of the delivery are covered by health center weekends. Our partners are also very happy about what we are doing with them. We have a strong team in place working on this. Bienvenue, who is engineer, leading the development of all the technology in house. Anissa is leading our marketing activity, and pharmacists and health extensive experience in healthcare business. We are joined by a talented group of advisors who are helping us to design and build this clever business. We believe that we can be profitable in the 30 years of experience and empower more than 1 million people in Africa to be about healthcare when they need. Finally, we are fundraising. We are looking for $500,000, mainly to build a world-class data science team and also achieve the next 12 months 15,000 users. We are also looking for improved telco and FMCG if someone has a question for us. And if you like what you heard, please do get in touch with us at the end of the conference. And please keep you, we are wicked and we are bringing the future of access to healthcare.
So that's pretty good, right? Good notes to take on the slides. So he won that competition. That's why I'm showing it to you. But you can notice all the pieces. This is a 5, maybe 5.5 minute presentation. I can't remember the exact second, but you can see places where you could cut in order to meet the 3 minutes, and places that you can add if you want to add more information for your 7-minute presentation. But I thought his slides were really, really great and covered a lot of the outline from what is being asked of you. And we'll dive a little bit deeper in some of the slides as I go further into the outline, okay? Any other questions? Anything that you particularly liked about his presentation that you want to mention? Amber.
In regards to that pilot slide, how would you see, I kind of like that one to show just traction, but maybe some like immediate outcomes too.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think it would replace in the standard
Outlines. I mean, if you can use the traction one, the traction section outline, which I think is called feasibility for the 3-minute one, if that's what you're looking to do, I would put it in there. So what has been so far, but I think you did a good job in including. Good question. There's another question here or comment? No? So this is really, go to YouTube, search social innovation pitch competition. It's happening around the world. And just look at, again, who won the competition, if you're, strapped for time, and then watch their video and even watch their Q&A. He has a Q&A after this, so watch that too. If you want to be even more specific, healthcare industry competition or social innovation competition or whatever software app, you can be specific. YouTube has a bunch that you can learn from. All right, so the next thing is we're going to go from the top of the outline now that you have a little bit of an example. Let's see if we'll go to the next. All right, opener is really easy. This is really the title slide. If you want to keep it simple, especially because you're strapped for time, company name, your name, thank you so much for having me. And I typically like having a tagline of your company that represents what you do. So an example of this is this one. The natural nipple, seamless, stress-free, bottle and breastfeeding. Oh, I meant to remove her contact information, but it's online anyway, so it's fine. Everyone knows it. But this is from a competition that I was a judge of, and she won the competition as well. And it's simple. Actually, you can't see, but there is an outline of a woman breastfeeding. It's not showing up here, but it's the company logo, tagline, and the contact information. I sometimes say, don't include, it's not necessary to include your contact information in the front. For me, I don't really care to contact you unless I've seen the presentation, so you might be wasting space. That might be me though. All right. The next section is sort of that market size, relevance problem statement. And so for your slide, it could look like something like this. And the only reason I'm bringing it up, this looks very complicated, is if you're in a complicated industry. I think some of you, or a couple of you, are in the medical industry, so it might be more complex that you might have to include something like this. But you want to talk about specifically, this person, this company sells gowns. So you're not just saying clothing, hospital clothing. It's washable safety apparel because they're providing washable gowns to hospitals. So you want to be as specific as possible. And then going usually launch market, day one, what is the market? They're planning to hit New York, New Jersey, and PA, which I think was really smart to specify versus what is the overall. And then as they grow, how does that market change? Yes.
It's not a nipple.
No. Sorry, this is a different one. I'm giving different examples because I felt no one does it all correctly, in my opinion. And I also want to give you variation of what this can look like. Great example. Great question. Yes.
One thing I was asking, mentioned, person highlighting the region.
Yes.
It was serving.
Yeah.
Please remember that this is about Pennsylvania. I cannot stress enough how important it is for you to emphasize what you're talking about.
That I'm glad you said that. I think to highlight that. So maybe here in the market, first specify what that market is in Southwestern Pennsylvania. Can they mention, okay, after that, this is how we can help more globally?
Yes, they can.
Okay, but the focus is here. Day one should be Southwestern. Got it. So now I have to take note. The other option is how is this industry or this market growing between now and next? When she presented this, it was 2021, so it was some years out, but now we're in 2023. But for her, this is for the natural nipple. For her, it's the baby care industry and the femtech industry. She's kind of in two industries, and I'm sure some of you fit into a couple of buckets. So she decided to include both. But that for the baby care and femtech industries, it's growing at a $157.5 billion, to be a total market opportunity of $157.5 billion. So that could be as complex as this. I would steer away from looking anything like this for the showcase and making it more look like this for the showcase, and then the inverse to be true for the actual judging. Now, when you talk about the market too, you're still talking about the relevance and the problem and how this connects to UpPrize. So you want to talk about that problem statement. So for the natural nipple, she had this slide. Current bottles are the #1 barrier to breastfeeding. Bottles create nipple confusion, direct breastfeeding then takes longer and more painful, mothers tired and give up, baby mother immune exchange fails. So this is a very simple slide, but it kind of gets to the point, right? And in the actual presentation, which I will show at the end, time permitting, she adds some color, but it's straightforward. Someone can literally talk about the natural nipple after this presentation. She follows it to show social impact. By prolonging breastfeeding rates to 6 months, we can save the lives of 1 million children under the age of 5. You have buy-in. Who's going to read this and be like, I don't want to save 1 million children, right? And she even for those who aren't design inclined, I always promote big numbers, make them big. Make them big on the slide. Everything else, because you don't want them to be really reading. You're kind of supposed to be saying the words, but the numbers are sometimes harder to remember. It's easier if it's on the actual slide. Okay, so some examples. Now you want to get into solution, right? So you set the tone, you set the market, but now you want to talk about your favorite thing, which you talk about every day is what you actually provide. And this is an art because you don't have a lot of time to do this. I've got, I think, 2 examples. One is actually from Glasspoint. I have permission from them to show this. This is a software app. And I always encourage that if you have an app or something that is really an app or anything that is multi-step, you can condense it to 3 steps that will be ideal. At most, maybe 5 if you can make it work, but always try to make it as easy as 1, 2, 3. You don't want to make it seem that using your app or your product is going to be very cumbersome or hard. You want people to remember the 3-step process. I would have even taken this slide further and not really had all of this writing under, or change the steps to a title like step 1, whatever. Collect. 2, analyze. Step 3, whatever, insights, something like that. So I encourage you to keep it as simple as possible. But what they did right was at the top, how we match the right customers with the right offers, channels, and messaging. So now I know they've got customers and what they're doing. What's the transformation that they're going through as a result of using their solution? For the natural nipple, if you have an actual product, they have a 3 kind of point product, 3 components to their solution, which is their physical, which they mentioned, right? Instead of saying, oh, it's the actual bottle, it's the app, and then it's the analyzing thing, they just make it really simple. They have, natural nipple, they have a physical, they have a digital, and they have a data component to their business. That's easy to remember and to say to someone else. But that's really, I don't think they spend much more time talking about their product. They're really going into what is next. And I think their next slide was this one, which was competition. And this was in the outline. How did it was included? The outline, it wasn't your value proposition. It was your value proposition. And it doesn't have to fit, you don't actually have to do this grid. If that makes sense in communicating best why you stand out, that's great. Other things that I've seen is that you remove the competition and just mention here are like the 3 or 4 main things that really stand out. I would be worried if you're going into a market, especially in Southwestern Pennsylvania, where a company is well known to be in the industry, if you don't mention it, I don't know, I would mention it saying this is why we're better, because then it might look like you don't know your market, right? Or that would be the question someone's thinking right now. I don't know, this person, I've written it down. Oh, this person already, so that they exist. Okay, but if you notice on the left-hand side, they've got, it's actually breastfeeding like, and she actually talked in the presentation how they made sure it was very similar to the actual breast. They've got a certain type of design. 3D scanning makes it really scalable, data-driven flow. So she talks about subscription stage feeding, she talks about all these components that make them better than some of the other components. And it's not like, whatever, Philips has 6 of these and they've got all 3, 6, 9. No, the other ones only have 2. So you really want to show what your value proposition or what you're actually bringing compared to some of the other competitors. Another example here is, this is for, oh my goodness, testing and blood, I believe. And what they're showing is benchmarking. Here's how the industry does it. This is the current standard. We're disrupting the standard from what this is, what it is now, up to 2 days. For us, results in less than a minute. And showing what a stark difference it is by actually going behind and supporting your product or supporting your solution. So if that's your product or that's your situation, where you're going up against the standard and you're disrupting it with your solution, then I encourage you, maybe this format might be better. It's like you can't argue. When you look at this, you can't argue. Great. Feasibility, traction. So there are many ways that you can do this, and I think I have 3 examples here. Sometimes you're new, right? You don't have that pilot yet. Sometimes you don't have that first customer yet. So you have to kind of talk about other things that you have going for you. So for example, for the natural nipple, she was early, right? Especially for the area that she's in, it's going to take a while for her to get to market. So for her, she talked about how much grants and investments she's received, research hours, patents. If you have anything that you can have a patent or patent pending, included, period, included. Also partnerships that she's worked with, especially, I don't know why entrepreneurs do this. Sometimes they just write out Johnson & Johnson, or they write out, whatever, core, NSF course. Include the logo. That is going to be more impressionable. People are going to collect that more. People respond to imagery. And so they'll recognize that and then remember that more. So that is something, as an example, if you don't have too much customer traction, there are other things you got going on for you, or that you developed the product already, right? Or that you've gone through some pilot testing in a small, beta testing or something like that. Snack and test counts are, okay. The other one could be, just how many, deliveries, this is for a different product entirely, but maybe number of units given or delivered per month, how much you've done it over time in the last, I don't know what the timeline is, but you can say, not only that, but we also learned what our customer acquisition costs. Does it show the mouse? Oh, this whole time it doesn't show the mouse over there. Sorry, guys. All right, so not only are you communicating what you've had per month, this takes up more space, it's communicating that it's also growing, but that through that you learn what your customer acquisition costs, what is your average monthly active users, your retention. So that is also important because it shows that you're not only good at getting the product out there, you're able to analyze your business data. And why is that important? Because you can use that to actually make decisions and grow. So if you have any of these numbers, I recommend you include them. If you don't have some of, like, let's say what Bryce had in the presentation, which looks more like this. Oh, shows fine on mine. Here, I'll just do this. Which look kind of like this, right? They have the partners, the key metrics, and again, we'll share this out so that you have the actual slides that Bryce had and the other ones that I'm showing. So if you don't have that much, then I would encourage you to maybe do this one, or maybe do something like this. Oh, it's doing this again. That's so strange. Do you know why, Joyce, or right?
I'm not sure it's what that's happening.
We'll keep it. No. Okay. Are you still with me? Yeah. I know it's dark in here. You know, you want to take a nap. It's been a long day, and I know this isn't like the funnest thing, but I want to get you all money. So, all right. So yeah, so here it is, and I think this presentation, this is really well organized. For a lot of information, which I typically discourage people to include, I think this is really well organized. But yeah, see how you can not only communicate partners, because really it's 2, 4, and then 7 partners, but look how he brought it out. And then key metrics, like what did you also learn at the end of month 6? I think it was pretty brilliant the way he did it. All right, now we're going to team. I'm going to zoom through this a little bit, but how many of you, the team is me, myself, and I? Mostly, okay. A couple of you, all right. So in that case, if it's mainly you, this is the opportunity for you to shine and share why you're the main person to lead this, and the team will come after, right? But you already saw Bryce's slide. I think it was pretty straightforward. It was the faces of the people, but also what experience they bring, which is really what's most important. You don't necessarily have to equate the logos to the person. If you want to include logos, that's fine. There's a whole conversation about, classism in that. We can go into that, but ultimately you want to communicate that this is the team so far to get you to the next level to bring you more money, right? Especially if you have a small team or it's just you and you have some advisors, some cool advisors that have some incredible experience, especially experience that you don't have, included on the slide. And you don't have to spend too much time. You just go Victoria, who has strategy and finance, Sadiq, industry, and Gurab, data science, right? Very, very simple. You don't have to go all in with the Salesforce. And we can see the logos. You don't have enough time. This is from the Natural Nipple. I just thought it was interesting the way she organized her advisors, which was more from again, you're not seeing thing, which is more from where do they fit in the process of the development of this. So they're going to be really great at building, they're going to be really great at launching, and they're going to be really great at scaling and growing. And so I thought that was really interesting, and I appreciated that of her. Questions about team or anything up until this point? All right. So impact of the money. So the impact of the money, I'm actually going to touch on a little bit later, but this part is really tricky. And the reason being is that the impact of the money, what happens if, okay, this is only going to be paying a quarter of what I need to get this generator going, right? Or this is actually going to get me to the milestones. You just have to decide what this actually is going to do. And sometimes you don't frame it as, I'll be able to hire a developer or product manager. It's, I'm gonna make this product exist, right? You see the difference there, where one is more outcomes driven versus activity driven. And that's what I would recommend from this section. And it doesn't have to be anything complex. In fact, you don't have to spend a lot of time. What's the top prize? Is it still $150,000? And then
And the other two, so just to reiterate, the way the process is working, there's 3 categories. Each top winner in each category will be awarded $75,000. Then a grand prize winner will win an additional $75,000. That grand prize will be 150, the other 2 70.
okay, thank you. That's good. All right, 75. So you got the numbers. So I will say, when someone is judging these kinds of competitions, the clearer you are about what you're going to do with that money, the more you're going to score a lot of points. That's weighted, I think, on that section. And it would have to be, again, I would say more outcomes driven than to say, I'm going to hire this person. No, we're going to be able to launch the product in November. We're going to be able, and if you can include a timeline, even better, under promise over deliver is what I always say. But it doesn't have to be that complex. What are you going to do with it from outcomes and the timeline if possible? And I'll have some examples later on that's connected to the fundraising side. All right, so now we're getting into that 7-minute. All of this is included in the 7-minute, but here are the additional items that have to be in the 7-minute. Everything else was 3 minutes and 7-minute presentation. Here's what has to also be included in the 7-minute, which is the revenue model. How do or will you make money? So a couple of examples that I have here. One, this is related to delivery. This person showed kind of the break-even point. I'm going to tell you something. This is a lie.
It's always,
This is a lie.
why are we doing revenue model?
This is a lie. This is a lie. What is important more, or what I care more about, is what you're talking about. What is happening between now and then to try to generate revenue? So I don't really, personally, I can't speak for the judges, but personally, and what they're going to be judging you on is your revenue model. And what I encourage you to do is, how do you communicate that whatever it is informed and not just saying, look at our graph, we're going to make this happen. At least if I was a judge, I got questions like, what are the assumptions that you have here? How many partnerships are you looking to achieve? What is your profit margin? That's what I care more than revenue model, which is why I liked Bryce's business model slide, which is more about how is he actually generating the money. Oh, I didn't include his graph. Sorry about that. I'll include it in the PDF that I'll send out. But it's including first, how am I making money? And then what is his expectation in terms of customer acquisition to help him get over the hump? All right. So that's what I encourage you to do. But at the end of the day, even if you're against revenue model, they're judging you on it. But you're right. Don't include just this. Right? Don't. And he has it by month. That's not going to happen. Right? But the idea is that you still want to include some kind of projection. What they want to understand, are you looking to double, quarter? What is the growth, rate of growth is really the question you're answering. Is it going to take 2 years, 3 years? For some of you, from what I read, it's going to take a while. For some of you, you have a product that you can just scale really quickly in a short amount of time. So, and I'll provide some additional resources in the follow-up material to figure out how you can actually determine that. All right. The next thing is the customer acquisition, which is required as part of the rubric. So if you build it, how will they come? Unless it's something really, really incredible or you're a famous celebrity, you actually have to do work to acquire customers. You know this more than I do, right? And so here are some questions, and I'll be honest, I didn't find a good slide that I like to represent this. So instead, I'm going to give you some questions that I encourage you to answer in your presentation as a result, and some do's and don'ts. And I don't think you can, maybe you might be able to read this. So in this slide, what are some things you can answer? How does your sales process align with how customers buy? Big issue is people just go, oh, I'm gonna put it on Instagram or social media, I'm gonna go to trade shows. But if you don't understand the buying process of your customer, you're not gonna land them. And that means you need to talk to them. How is that decision being made? How often is that being made? You work with government, those contracts are multi-year. So you might talk to them today, they might be interested, but they've got a contract for the next 5 years. So you're not gonna get into that pipeline. When is that decision happening? Is it that person? How many people are involved? So you need to understand from a customer acquisition, we know that every October they decide that, I don't know, we do an assessment for biases in our company using DBias, or using a similar product as DBias. How will you build awareness, attract new customers, and grow sales? So if you're B2B, that's a totally different way of doing than B2C. Where are they finding? Is it a trade? I mentioned, is it a trade show? Is it on social media? Is it that there is a quarterly meeting that you need to be at? How are they determining, or how are you going to attract those customers? How can you build your business? How can your business grow faster? Oh, sales and marketing. So in your growth plan, and I don't know, maybe part of the 75K will help you grow your sale. Maybe you have the product already. What you need is a sales team, because it's hard. I think actually KJ mentioned it because you did a presentation where you said you're either in product mode or you're in, customer or fundraising mode, and it's hard to do both, right? You have to determine, can your company afford to do that switch, or you do have to do it simultaneously. So what can your business actually grow? If you hire sales and marketing people, can you grow efficiently without breaking the bank? So a lot of, especially if you are in the investment track, they want to see you, unfortunately, be as nimble as possible. I have some personal beliefs about that, but you just want to see, can you make it happen? Can you bring money with spending as little money as possible? And then also, what have you learned so far? And there's some other questions there. I won't go into it because we're running out of time, but what have you learned so far? So if you notice in Bryce's presentation, he had included, what are some things that were learned or key metrics that were achieved as a result of the pilots? Well, I would say the same is true for the customer acquisition. If you already develop customers, you should have learned a few things, a thing or two on how to acquire them. So communicate that. Some do's and don'ts for that slide. Do keep it to 3 main strategies, even if you have 10. And this is from scalingpoint.com. They actually have a really great PDF that I'll include in the further reading. So include 3 main strategies. You want to demonstrate the traction with the numbers, so that's from earlier. You want to know your customer acquisition costs if it's possible. If you don't have any customers, of course, you might not know it. There's some ways that you can try to budget, but if you don't know, if you haven't had customers and have the numbers, just don't include it, is what I encourage you to do. And then describe how you will increase efficiency and leverage in your sales and marketing, which I already mentioned. And then also, how are you going to stand out in the market overall? So especially if you're going into a very congested market, how are you standing out? Is it the partnerships that you're already talking to Microsoft, that you're already involved? How are you standing out? Some don'ts is just pretty much the inverse of the do's. And so I'll leave you to just review that on your own in the PDF. So for scalability and fundraising, I'm actually going to put them together. So for scalability, this is what you're really answering. How will this look like with 100 customers and 1,000 customers? And what I mean by that is sometimes when you first get started, especially when the product isn't fully built, you're kind of like the magician behind the curtain, where when you have a customer, you're kind of on Excel making it work. And that's okay for now because you're still trying to build the product. But you have to think about, you're not always going to be the one person. What happens when you have 100 customers? Can the product that you build actually scale to serve that? And the answer could be no. But is it today, right? But is it already, are you already thinking about what it will look like, the foundation of it? If you're a tech platform, I think that's a lot easier. If you're a physical product, that might be a little bit harder. You have to think about production size, right? And then how will you get there? So if you are thinking about what it looks like at 100 or 1,000 customers, you want to say, all right, well, in order to get to that, our platform needs to be able to increase the number of servers, or we need to hire X amount of tech people, or we need a customer service team, or, now you start thinking about what that looks like from a scalability. They understand that you're not out there right now. That's the whole point. But that you're thinking about scalability, you're not looking to just stay small. And then part of the rubric too is how, as you scale, your impact also scales. So, Southwestern Pennsylvania, you'll be able to help X amount of nonprofits, or you're really big on the nonprofit side. So if you can help, if you are truly helping nonprofits, include it. If you're not, don't include it. But how will that impact grow? We'll serve X amount of more community members. It will be able to become, the standard for, nationally for this industry. So you want to make sure you address this because they're being asked this specifically. And you can literally say, how will our impact grow? In this way, and just make it as easy as possible for them to fill that rubric out. All right. This is also part of the 7-minute pitch. Ooh, I apologize, this should not be under here. But for fundraising, it's what you typically see in an investment pitch, which I have a couple of examples here. Bryce had a really good one. Investment opportunity for them. We're currently looking for 500K to reach outcomes driven, right? 15K users in 12 months. Maybe if you want to be cheeky, you can say, phase 1 win UpPrize. I don't know if they're humor, so maybe you don't want to do that. They might not like that, but they're raising a 500K stake. In their case, 20% discount, valuation cap. He wants some introductions and actually specifies who, if anyone knows. And then up here is what will actually happen: onboarding retail partners, customer acquisition, and marketing. That's a little bit vague for my case, but it's fine. He had a really strong bet. Expand hospitals and pharmacies network. Some people take it a step further and actually say how many and how much time will this be able to do, but also it's all a guess. All a guess. So maybe he did the right thing by not including it. The other option is what the natural nipple did, which was, she was raising a safe note and then mentioned it. This is a very, especially when you're not sure, this is a very lean slide, but she talks a little bit more about it in the actual presentation. We're running out of time. All right, so 200K prototype development, 50K for R&D, and the 250K for materials. It's pretty straightforward, and because of the area that she's in, it's just expensive. So she didn't have a lot of explanation to do there. Lastly, for closer, this is really simple. This is just your ending slide. I always like when the ending slide has the tagline, include your website, contact information, and a visual. So, for thank you, this was for the sickle cell disease treatment. And I showed earlier they were disrupting the standard. They're showing, okay, it takes 1 day, the current standard for them, it will take 1 minute. And so they include the logo, they include the tagline, the contact information, and they also just in the end include what partners they've had. For a different company, you can just include, representative image. They even showed a little bit of the app again, because that's usually, until you're going to your appendix, this is the slide that's staying up the longest. So you want to make sure that it's imprinted, that you have an app, what it looks like, in your contact information. So to summarize again, this is what I would recommend. The total amount of orange sums up to about 7 minutes, maybe a few seconds less. The left-hand side sums to about 3 minutes. This can change based on your company. You have to decide this for you. There is no such thing as one size fits all, but I'm just giving you somewhere to start if you need a place to start. But you also are the master of your business, and you have a rubric. You have to make the decision for you. Okay? All right. So let's look at, before we go into sort of a little bit more of, all right, I'm going to ask you, because we only have 15 minutes. We can either, I can either show you the natural nipple pitch, or we can go in to take a 5-minute break and then go into a little bit of Q&A, some speaking tips, and then just have an open discussion, because I think we end at 7, right?
7.
Oh, really? Oh, snap. Okay, I thought I had 7 on my phone.
Yeah, well, we have 7, but if you need more time since we started a little later.
Well, I mean, I also want to be mindful of people's schedule. Yeah.
I'm also very invested in natural nipple at this point.
It's a 5-minute pitch. It's a 5-minute pitch. All right, so you want to see a natural nipple, and or do you want to talk about, you'll have the link anyway. I'll send it.
Talk, so we can our questions and.
Yeah.
get that done now.
Okay, all right, we'll do that. I like that you're investing out. At least I'm doing it right. I'm doing it right. All right. So the link will be in the PDF. All right, so does anyone need like a 2-minute break? How about we like, or stand up and stretch for a second? Yeah, let's stand up and stretch, get the blood flowing a little bit. Just like a minute.
Thank you, that was awesome.
Yeah,
So many ideas.
okay, good. Good. It's hard with so many different types of companies to put it in a,
I'm sure. You're right, no one size fits all.
no. I've had people who spend a lot of time in one thing or switch the outline entirely and it works for them. So,
I have so many questions, I don't even.
yeah,
Not really, it's more like.
we can just talk about it, yeah. Yeah,
So many things are loading, and I'm like, okay.
yeah.
And then you throw no ADHD in there.
Yeah, you're like,
And then I'm gonna go,
I have a question, and I
Yeah.
have a little bit petty, because you were saying this is a competition. and
Yeah.
you're mindful of competition. For those that did not show up for this mandatory session, you think stopped against them?
So, I did tell everyone, so they have very legitimate reasons. One of the semifinalists who was expecting and had their baby last week. Yeah.
No, fertility insurance.
And, the other semifinalists really started to feel a little offended.
Okay.
So I think you
Really?
should much prefer that they stay.
Yeah.
But.
all right, it was just a minute, so, all right, get your way over.
So we're kind of ending this situation. So the one that I am a builder. Our pitch is more of a tool. It's not one of this. So we only do this for stabilization. We already built the things.
Loaded up.
Yeah, I didn't even get to mine. I just ate the chips, which is
Yeah.
probably the least healthy part of the whole thing.
And so like providing this information on the front end, so that we can
don't know. And they're not trying to, some people become defensive. Why are you asking about my finances? I know they're just asking. And most of the time, sometimes there's some biases under there if you look at how questions are being asked towards certain types of people versus others, but that's a whole other presentation. But try to just be nice, just keep that energy good. And then I always say, you know, also don't BS it. So if you don't know the answer to a question, don't make it up. Just say, I even gave you the quote. This is directly from one of the pitch competitions that I did, where I asked the question, she didn't know the answer, and she said, that is an interesting question. We haven't done that research on that yet, but it's a good question to note down. And usually it's like, I'll get back to you later. So just say that, it's okay. Because usually the judges will know, judges usually ask the same questions across different competitions, and that's their go-to question. So they'll know when an answer is, you're making it up. Or usually they'll know when you're making it up. So you guys say, you know what, that's a good question. I don't have that with me yet, or I don't know that yet. I would love your contact information to follow up. And now you have a follow-up. All right, speaking tips. I know you know these, but I'm gonna say them to you anyway, all right? And for those who see my presentation, you've seen this part, but I always encourage you, you have so much information about your company because you live and breathe it, right? And you want to say it all because you're like, well, how do you understand this part without understanding this part? Because that part is also connected to this part and all these things, right? And so what I encourage you to do when you're doing this presentation is like when you're doing it, just write it all out, put it all out, everything you want to say in the presentation and just get it out of your system, right? And then I tell you like cut 60% of it, right? Put it in the appendix, put it somewhere else, put it in the notes that's like, okay, someone has more information, but what are the 3 things that I really need to say or that this person should be equipped to tell someone else reasonably, right? So cut 60% of it, and most of it is not that important, or it just doesn't make sense for this amount of time. Yes?
Can you give us an idea of what an appendix, like a layout of an appendix, like what is that?
It's essentially like your presentation slides, you're just putting it in an appendix section. So after you have your closing slide, like thank you, blah, 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 then you can have a title slide afterward that says appendix. And there are all, you know, if you were to expand on your customer, who your customer is, you just put that slide as if you were presenting it, but you're putting it in that trunk. Yeah, yes. And I don't know if Bryce pointed to any appendix slides. I'll have to double check. But really, they're just regular presentation slides that just couldn't fit in there, or do you want to, if someone were to ask more information, it's already there. But they're individual slides. It's not like in a book that has the
Not an index.
yeah, not an
I
index.
was thinking about.
Appendix. Yes.
So an example, I put like my case studies with like extra data
That's a great example.
in my appendix, so the traction will have that, and I'm like, can you talk a little bit more about like how this impacted some? Then I'll pull up one of my case studies and talk about that.
That's a great example, Amber. Do you have a question?
Yeah, the virtual pitch, is it gonna be us one-on-one with the judges, or will everybody get to be in on the virtual?
It will be you with the judge.
Okay,
So, we'll send out the sign-up sheet, you'll sign up for your slot. You know, I want it to be fair, so, the link will go out, everyone will sign up for their slot, that will be 5 on one day, 4 on the next, and,
perfect.
Mhm. Awesome. All right, so the next thing is, let's go really quickly. I push, simplicity, specificity, tone, speech, and confidence. So think about when you're presenting and your slides itself, does it have those 4 things? Because if you want a slide, for example, when you think about simplicity, you want to keep it simple, visual, and bold. The example I often give is Afro string. And because there's like half of you have seen this, so I won't go too much, but this is a slide trying to talk about what Afro string does. And granted, they try to change the color to stand as subscription video on demand for underserved Black and Black friendly audiences. But it's still, the font is really close to each other. It's a lot of writing. You don't really understand. And so they revise it and it looks more like this, right? It has the logo, Netflix of African and African-American content. And it's very simple and straightforward. You can talk about these nuances, but this is what the slide should look like. These are the usual do's and don'ts. You've all seen this. I'm gonna tell you again because everyone forgets. You want to keep your slides simple. Always have a lot of energy. For the tech, know what you have. So for the virtual, know that If you're gonna be on one laptop screen, how are you gonna see your speaker notes if you need them? Are they gonna be printed instead? If you have dual monitors, practice, but sometimes when you put the presenter view on one monitor, it doesn't show on the other when you share your screen. So I often for Zoom, just have a friend go on Zoom with me and I say, can I practice this with you? And I literally write down what screen this was on. Like because I'm gonna forget between now and then because I'm nervous. So just practice with Zoom. And then for the actual showcase, you mentioned that they'll either have a handheld mic or a podium mic that they'll be speaking at.
Yeah.
And then
both options, depending on your preference.
so decide, and then you'll have a clicker. So if you're gonna use the handheld, no, your hands are gonna be full. If you know that when you speak a little bit like this, either practice or decide to go behind the podium. I like to be more in front, walk around, especially because that Science Center is big. So the stage is gonna be big. You can talk here and then stay here and talk, and then you can move and talk. I like to look at someone, especially that person who's like nodding at you, because I'm like, man, they're listening to me. I feel really good. Like they like what I'm saying. Find those people are in the audience and just talk at them and make sure it's a little bit, around if you decide to be on stage. If you want to do behind the podium, I'm short, so you barely can see me, so I typically won't do that. But if you want to do that, that's fine too. It's all about that presence, speaking into the microphone and being engaging. All right. You want to practice, keep a timer. So for the showcase, will you have the timer up on the stage? I don't
No,
No?
there won't be a timer. So we will run a timer during the practice sessions, being on Melon, because that was a challenge. So by the time you get to the showcase, you should be there. What we are going to do, and if you can, I highly suggest take the day of the showcase off. If you can, because we're going to practice here first before we go to the Carnegie Science Center. I haven't cleared out the time exactly, but it'll most likely be in the mid-morning. So you have time to practice here, gather your thoughts, meet us at the Science Center, we know the slides work, we feel good about everything, and then you'll be able to feel confident when you go on the stage that evening.
Great. And then for the virtual one, I highly encourage you to have your phone with the timer. And that way, okay, I'm almost done. I'm only halfway through my slides. Especially the slides later on are super important, especially if you're going into the business. So you don't want to run out of time because you'll definitely be stopping.
And I will say time.
Yeah.
I'll let you know and give you cues and prompts. And we will use Zoom because I think everyone feels most comfortable with that structure and screen and all that.
Yeah. So just practice that part. Obviously, don't, speak at a certain pace. Sometimes naturally you're very excitable. You're going to speak, with more excitement, but don't speak too quickly because then it all, as my mom says, it turns into rice and beans. There's just words coming at you for the judges and they can't decipher one thing or the other. And so just be careful. I've been recording myself. I've had to give some difficult news to people and I've recorded myself before just to kind of see how am I presenting? Am I sharing? Am I being thoughtful? Even when I'm doing a pitch presentation, I record. I know it stinks to watch yourself. I know. But it's the only way to get better. It's the only way. I'm a dancer. I started recording myself dancing and I was like, man, I'm doing this when I turn. That's not cute. I've been doing this for 5 years. No one told me. So if you need some honesty, I'm always happy to be honest with you. Art's laughing because he knows. But either get yourself some honest friends or record yourself or do both. And then what am I missing here? Yeah, don't over answer the Q&A. Don't over answer. All right, I'm gonna leave it at that. I have a couple of tools for you. Just to remind you, Go, Good, Great. Here are some additional ones that it will be sent over, not only tools for you to build your pitch deck or rebuild your pitch deck, but also even a ChatGPT prompt to help you with, if you need just some outside thinking on how to talk about this, if you feel comfortable. I wanna say thank you. You got this. And yeah, thank you for having me and I'll be here. Good. And how about we'll do kind of a quick summary, any two major takeaway that you have from the presentation or something you might think about or do differently as a result? Yeah.
probably go to YouTube and watch some pictures just to get some ideas.
Yeah.
That's some new ones on that.
Nice, great, great. Yes, YouTube is such a useful thing. That's fun. Anything else? One more?
Do not speak at 55 miles. And I have no idea.
What do you think is coming from? Why? When you talk to your friends, do you talk that fast? Okay.
It's just that my mother used to call me CD, chatterbox.
Really?
This is But I can slow down if I'm being mindful about it, but then I feel like, even just kind of panic from watching, I'm glad so there isn't a timer like in my face.
Yeah.
I would lose it. I would be like, Joyce, please take it down. Like,
Yeah.
but I think that, you know, when we're being intentional about it and actually thinking about it, right? It's a little easier to control when you're on stage, and that's not what you usually do, right? A lot of people aren't used to being up there. I can get her done, but you know, I build buildings. I'm around construction workers. They curse a lot, you know, like, I'm trying to make sure that like you keep it concise. Do not go too fast. That's
No. Yeah, Joyce?
Just to thinking real quick about the showcase night, we can, and I remember we needed to do this last time. We had like a red flag over on the corner, so you know, kind of to wrap it up, you know, just, but not to speed you along, but just kind of remember.
And I will, and I appreciate the reflection, but to be honest, you're gonna forget all of that on stage. And so that's why I encourage you to practice and record yourself and see, well, is it that I need to reduce the amount of things that I'm saying? Or is it, you know, when they say like, you know, think of staying alive when you're doing like CPR, you know, what song is gonna get you to that motion? I used to, when I would use, even in high school, I would watch certain people deliver speeches, often I did Obama, right? And just look at how slow he would do it. And sometimes when you listen enough of it, you start to kind of internalize it too. Okay, I'm hearing this rhythm. I'm gonna start following that. And that might be helpful too, but you're not gonna remember those things. So see what you can do. But it's gonna take practice too. That's it. All right. I know it's past 7. I'll be here for a little bit longer if you have any individual questions that you want to ask, but thank you so much for participating, for being here, and I wish you luck. It's gonna be great. Yeah. Thank you. Your mentor is accessible. Is that what you're gonna talk about?
Yes, mentors, and Nadyli will be joining us next week, because we do have another session next week. So hope to see you all here. Please know you can bring your other team members to these events as well, because it's very helpful for you. This isn't just for the pitch practice or the showcase. This is for your work as an entrepreneur as a whole. So please make sure you consider that. Mentors are here to help with this. They might not know all the details surrounding, but they're the perfect person to hear your pitch and give you feedback prior to. So now's the great time. If you haven't already, contact them, say, hey, can we schedule some time for you to hear my pitch, say before September 20th. And then maybe again, they have to got feedback.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Grab food.
Thank you.
Grab food or, yeah, take it home.